This has become one of my favorite series. Get to sit down with some of the baseball's greatest, and you can consider them as being stars, legends. I just consider them great people, and you're not going to find a better person that's joining us next, and that is, he was a pretty good ball player, Hall of Famer, but even a better person. Let's bring on Jim Thome. Jim, how we doing?
Hey, Ryan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. You know, let's just say I'm trying to find different ways to stay active. And you're staying busy all the time, it seems like, or actually you were ready to hop on this, it seemed like an hour ago when we were ready to start this off.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of with you. This is a time of year, we're close to spring training, right? Where in about 2-3 weeks, spring training is going to start. You get these kind of spurts of cold weather. We're living in Chicago, so at times it can be 0. Today it's mid 50s. And when you get those, little spurts of warm weather, it's fun, right? You get outside, you hit ground balls. My son's in high school baseball, so he's a junior, and just as much as we can get outside, the better. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, even though I know you've been done playing for a while now here, but it sounds like you still got that baseball itch. For me, when I was playing still, and even now, once, the new year hit, and then you're like, okay, spring training, month away.
Yeah.
It's happening. You're looking for some changes. So that feeling hasn't changed. And obviously you're taking it to the next level with coaching. How's it? You know what? I'm curious from a personal level, because my dad helped with coaching with me. Well, how has that whole experience been before we kind of dive in deeper to your journey to where you are now?
It's been absolutely awesome being around you. So I have a daughter that's at Arizona State. And then I have my son's a junior in high school, and just, around the coaching aspect of it, it's so great to just be around it. It goes by so quick, and you blink an eye. I remember when he was a freshman, and then now he's a junior next year, and then he's going to be off to college. And, so my son actually committed to Tennessee this past fall. So that's pretty cool stuff. And, I just being around it and being there, and, but I also have an understanding that, I want him to have his identity and understand that whenever he needs me, I'm there for input. I'm there for advice, as I am to all the kids. But you want your kid to realize we're around, but we're letting you spread your wings and have your own identity. And he's been great. I think that aspect of it has been awesome, just as we've been together and been around each other.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that of, trying to find your identity, and I'll be honest again too, Jim. Thome is not a very common last name. So when people bring that up, just like Ripken, kind of, a light bulb goes off there, and you're like, I wonder, relation to a baseball family, and so that's a hard thing as a young adult trying to continue the path. But also, I think that's a great mindset that you have. And for anyone, you want to be there to help when you can and guide, but they got to walk the walk themselves. And ultimately, that's something I appreciated that helped me figure things out more as an individual as I continue on my path. So that's awesome. Can't wait to see what the future is. But hopefully time doesn't go by too quickly so you can enjoy.
I know.
I still look back right now. I'm like, dang, my dad and Larry Sheets, Gavin Sheets, who's on or was on the box, that was our coaching staff. And Larry was our head coach, and my dad would be coaching with us. And in the moment, I'm like, this just seems kind of ridiculous. And then in the blink of an eye, it's over. And I went back and went, man, that's pretty cool. And I think it's the last time I've really seen my dad in a uniform. Jim, do you still go full uni?
I go uni in high school. Yep. So I work with the hitters, and it's kind of cool. My biggest thing with high school kids is is, you know, you want to dive into, you know, every day there's something that, whether it's a drill, whether it's, I don't really talk a lot of mechanics with the kids unless you really, as a coach, you communicate and you go, okay, we're going to do this. But at the end of the day, the high school level to me is about putting them in a position to succeed mentally and be ready to go. They're not getting scouting reports. They're not, you know, it's not like they can watch. They can nowadays with resources watch video of maybe kids will face. But I think getting their mind right and getting them during the week in preparation with some of the drills that we're doing, you as a coach hope that carries on then to success. And then once success happens, you know, there's you may not say anything. You might just do the drills. You might be that positive input that they can have every day. And I would say that that is the best part of it, is that these kids, the younger generation today, they really want to learn. They want to soar. They want to get a college. You know, they want colleges to call them and have opportunities to keep just playing the game. And I think that's what's great.
It really is. And honestly, we might go down a rabbit hole later about hitting and some
Sure.
that you and my Uncle Bill have done together over with MLB Network. But the mental part for anyone that's out there, I know that social media and everything is an easy access point to look at what is the cool thing to be doing. But the biggest thing for kids, if I could go back, the biggest thing I'd say if you were a teenager or trying to find yourself as a player was, can you figure out more of how to get in touch with the mental side? You do that first and continue to grow, be open-minded. You're going to be able to progress your skills. I guarantee you. I mean, Jim, we could talk about this forever, but why don't I kind of want to hear then what a young Jim looked like going way back, because I think that's even more, one, I think it's going to be fascinating, but number two, I think a lot of people can then relate and also might be surprised with what you had to go through. So if we want to go back, no secret for those that if they don't know, but no secret to us, you're a Midwestern guy, born in Peoria, Illinois. Actually, my former shortstop, Brad, was from Peoria.
Huh.
And how about that? So I knew about this town, but Jim, you just were small town guy. And, you know, we're talking a little bit off air before. You love baseball, but you were a big outdoorsman. You know, you love fishing, right? Give me some.
Fishing, hunting, loved being in the outdoors. Dad was always, and, you know, he always with my brothers as well, you know, like Thanksgiving morning, we would, you know, we'd go out and pheasant hunt or, you know, if in the springtime or in the fall, if we could find a pond to fish in, you know, that just growing up and being around, actually for me, it was both brothers, which they're older than I am. And then having Dad around too, it just, you know, it was really fun to grow up where I did. So Peoria is in the middle of St. Louis and Chicago. A great baseball area to grow up in. Grew up watching WGN and the Cubs, and then that rivalry of the Cub Cardinal for years, you know. And Peoria, like I said, is kind of right in the middle, so you get half Cubs, half Cardinal fans, and it was pretty intense, I gotta say, but fun to be a young kid growing up and having baseball, to be able, we could be around it and just play it and love doing it. That was the best part.
Do you have before we continue a little bit to that baseball side, you got any fishing story or any of those memories that just pop out to you?
Man, I would say my better fishing stories, you know, like just, I think the first time I might have caught a 5-pound bass, what it felt like reeling that bass in, and when you pulled it in, and then you taking that first picture with a with a fish that you could show to your buddies, right? It wasn't, quote, a fishing story. And you had proof that you caught that fish or this fish that you would later describe. But it was good. It was good. Peoria is, around the Midwest, you have these little 2-acre, 3-acre ponds that might have 5-6 pound bass in them. And it was just, once you found those spots, it was, you never forgot where to go. And that was the cool part about, about being around the fishing part of it.
Yeah, I can't say, Jim, that I have had that feeling of catching a 5, 6, 10 pound bass. I don't even know if I've caught a 2-pounder. I'm trying to think. Like we had a little pond by our house, and that we then, it was I think it was a pond that was made, so it wasn't a regular. It was a self-made pond, right? Is that
Man-made.
the phrase? Man-made. There's the word.
Yeah.
And but we had these giant catfish, and then we'd have some snapping turtles make their way in there. So that's as far as I've got to my moment of fishing, and that lasted ended at a very young age. And I don't think I actually did it just myself. I might have needed some assistance to help with that. So hey, you know what though? I love it, and I love hearing that background, because here you are in a place where you just explained it. You love to be outdoors. You have an idea of where you grew up, where it was between. You love baseball. And even though I agree, I think there's a lot of great baseball talent in that specific region, you have to try to be found. And for you, I'm sure everyone knew who attended. If I'm not mistaken, you were a Illinois Central College guy. Does that ring a bell?
I was a junior college there in my hometown. And, to your point, growing up in the Midwest, we didn't have the indoor facilities that they have today. So living in Chicago, we're lucky, we're fortunate. We have these, these domes that our kids they're astroturfed, so they can play and prepare. Back in our, it was taking ground balls in a gymnasium. It was, dropping a net in the corner, and as many swings as you could get, you did it. You tried to utilize every moment you had to prepare. And then growing up, so playing high school basketball as well, you would roll over from basketball. When that was over, it would be right into the spring, and you went right into baseball. But being a multi-sport athlete, I think, also prepared you how to compete. At the end of the day, if you can compete and have the desire and be a good teammate and having coaches to help you learn, that was really important and great.
Yeah, also too, Jim, I love that you keep bringing up the multi-sport, combination. That was something that I loved, and I'm glad that my parents were so adamant. Now, I was a big basketball guy, and you were saying off air, hey, the great athletes, right, play basketball. But I love it because you got to play and be competitive, and I actually felt that my legs were in the best shape that they could be in. But also, having said that, it gave my body a break. And I think that nowadays, as we've seen everything change, a lot of people that are playing baseball year round, there's a different stress and strain on your body. I mean, I don't even know, Jim, if I could have thrown or continued my career as long as I even played. You ended up going and having this huge decorated career. Do you think that time off, you mentioned earlier about mentally, but physically, that helped kind of recharge your body as you headed into baseball?
I couldn't agree more. I think having that break mentally, more importantly, which then once you got back into it, it put you in a spot mentally to really be ready to go. Growing up in Peoria, so high school basketball was big. There were some really good high school teams around our area that had really good players. And, we, as kids, it was great. just going and playing open gym. And, you know, if you went and played open gym, being invited to or picked to be a part of two teams that were going to play, and, you know, that competition level. And when you were picked, you wanted to show your skills. You wanted to show. And then as you would play, if you kept winning, you would play the next game. Then you would play the next game. So that was always the goal, was to win, be a good teammate, but also show your skills off.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, sports has such a great, can teach you a lot of life lessons, but also if you're going to continue to move up, there's so many different things, and different sports can bring that out of you as well. But I think the mental side, still to this day, I tell everyone, Jim, I think that is so undervalued, because in any sport you can have all the talent, but if mentally you aren't able to reset, recharge, or comprehend what the heck it is you're doing, it's going to be hard to go out there and to continue to climb the ladder. Now, obviously for you, things ended up working out, but what people probably don't know about you is then when you did get your chance for baseball, the 13th round, 1989 draft by Cleveland. And you know what, though? I think everyone's thinking, well, Jim's this big, strong guy. How about Jim Thome, the shortstop? What was your scouting report as a shortstop? Because that's what you were drafted as. Obviously, you transitioned over to third base, but what size were you when you were drafted?
I was probably, I'm going to say, in high school, I was probably 6'2", you know, almost my height now, maybe a little under, but much leaner, and you know, and I think probably right around 200, I would say, right in that area, 195 maybe. But I think playing basketball and being agile and being able to stay in shape, you pointed that out, staying in shape, keeping your legs, I call it. And that always helped me going into the baseball season to be an infielder. And you know, look, you know, I was fortunate that, you know, as an athlete, you know, playing in the middle of the diamond helped. You know, it helped me even in baseball as well, in the basketball aspect of the movements that you go through as a middle infielder.
That's certainly the first step quickness is what I always would look at. Even though I got to be honest, Jim, I had some quick first step quickness. I didn't have any other quickness in my game. In anything else that I did, I ran with my feet out. I ran like a duck. I blame genetics on that. But in all seriousness, the other things can certainly help you. But I always think that's, you know, I laugh because you went on to hit all those home runs and people have a certain image of what you did at the big league level. And yeah, you were drafted as a shortstop. You transitioned to play third. But I want to hear about, you can talk about the transition, but I also want to hear about your first impression of being in the minor leagues. Like, what was it, a overwhelming experience? And also, you got to have some sort of minor league story for me, because minor leagues back in the day aren't necessarily what the minor leagues are now. I'd say that, Jim, you were in the area where it builds character playing in the leagues.
Yeah, I would agree. So when I signed, you know, I was a young kid that grew up in the Midwest, and going away from home was tough. But I say that meaning and knowing that you were a kid that got an opportunity to play professional baseball. And that was the dream, right? Like, we all played Little League. We all played through high school. And then if you're fortunate to play through college, if you get drafted out of high school or in college, then the dream and the goal is, wow, this is when a team calls you and says, we want to sign you to play for us. That's like the biggest as a young kid, that's the biggest thing ever.
Mhm.
So, leaving home was tough. You get into the minor league lifestyle, you're playing ball, you're in the grind every day. And my experience in the minor leagues, because I'll credit the Indians organization of Cleveland, they had so many great people within our organization that were just, they taught us how to play the game the right way. They supported us. They were there to help us grow into young men, and also be a good teammate, to root for the guys that were your teammates. But they could have, and as we're all from different parts of the country, but
Right.
we all come together and form this bond that you'll never replace. Some of my greatest moments were stories on the buses, late at night, guys laying up in the luggage rack trying to get sleep, like the bonding of, hey, I haven't had a hit in 10 at bats. What are you thinking? Like just the hard part of growing up that I think you learn from the minor leagues, and also being humbled. The minor leagues will humble everyone, because you will go through some times that you have to, I call get locked in. And I was just fortunate. I was blessed that I grew up in a really good, strong organization. And I think it showed there many years in the mid 90s, our teams we had in Cleveland.
Yeah, I laugh. I almost had a little incident over here thinking about when you're saying just 10 at bats, the amount of bus trips where the colorful commentary when things weren't going well, it was therapeutic, right? Like it was therapeutic to talk about it. And the moments that you're talking about isn't necessarily in the minors where you went out there and had 3 home runs or this fantastic game, which, obviously we love those moments and memories, but it's always those bus trips. Did you tell me you had to have some sort of bus trip or bus story? I've had Larry Walker on earlier. He talked about him and Randy almost going flying when the bus had to come to an abrupt stop. I've had my fair share where our bus is broken down, shattered glass on a bus, where we're driving through the rain. Do you have any bus story that sticks out?
God, that's fun. That's great. I not any really of that in that regard, where I don't ever remember our bus ever breaking down, which is fortunate, right? But I do remember some late night storms, going through rainstorms that you couldn't see outside, and we just kept on moving, right? And kudos to our bus driver. Those guys were locked in and got us where we wanted to be. But I would say the stories of just the bonding, and guys coming together and forming this group. As I said, just being around each other and learning what that person was about, and the communication. You had to do it one-on-one. You had to do it face-to-face. So, and helping each other, helping that guy that was, as I said, whether you're 0 for 10 or 0 for 30 or 1 for 20, we always we were always aware of the guys that were going through that, to be there for them.
Yeah. And in pro ball too, Jim, people have this thought, and it's true that it is a business now. It's a competition. And in theory, sometimes you're competing with other guys that are on your team. I never like to think of it that way. I was similar to you where, if someone was struggling, I wanted to help. But in the minor leagues, it was trying to develop guys to get to the next level. And you're trying to figure out who is going to end up helping the big league team. but you want to try to create a culture that helps instill things that when you get to the big leagues, everyone is kind of together. And you mentioned it. There were some great teams up there when you got to Cleveland, and that all starts from the top, but all the way down to the bottom of building that type of relationship, building that culture. I got to ask you then, though, because I think people put players of your caliber, Jim, on a pedestal, right? I can't tell you how many times people would talk to Calvin and say, "Hey, we love Jim. He was okay, Jim. He did okay for his career." But I laugh because when I talk to him about other moments, he talks about things of, man, I didn't think that I was, or not that he didn't think he could end up overcoming it, but he goes, I really struggled here. I wasn't sure if I was going to turn it around. At what point in the minor leagues did maybe you flip a switch in your mind to kind of figure out, like, hey, I do belong. I can be a big leaguer. Did you have like a moment there that you could remember where the doubt became more of I want to say a sure thing, but you proved that you can do this?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say for me, once I got to AA, Canton, Akron, and being in Canton and having success, having success in AA offensively, that was a moment where I thought, okay, I've gone through A ball, I'm in AA. Guys are starting to throw harder. The pitching got much better. Wasn't really ever trying to hit home runs. Home runs kind of came a little bit later on, and just really learned to be a hitter. Learn to hit line drives through the middle of the field. Our approach and how we did it, I look back and I know we're going to dive into the hitting aspect, but the biggest thing for me, Ryan, was defensively. And look, I was never going to be a shortstop. I was a shortstop in high school, but when I moved to third base, even when I got to the big leagues, it was work for me to be an infielder. Like there was some struggles with some throwing, when I came up, and positioning and learning just little things about playing third base that took a while to learn, quite honestly. And having Buddy Bell around was great, because Buddy was a great support system. He rooted for all of our guys, and he wanted to work. He worked every day to try to help us be better, as an infielder. And it took me a long time to really, truly, I guess, get comfortable as an infielder.
Yeah. And I think, they say if you can find a place if you can hit, they'll find a place for you. But doesn't mean that it doesn't make players more stressed out. And we know, like, if you're able to do both, you can hit and field, you're the whole package, right? But that is something that's going to weigh on you if you feel that your defense is a weaker point. But yeah, you were able to figure things out. And one person that I know that was near and dear to you with this whole process was Charlie Manuel, like going through the system and and for Charlie, I mean, Jim, is there also a story around this that, and just looking at my notes, that you at one point that he was trying to teach you about how you point the bat like Roy Hobbs in The Natural? Is there something to that? Yeah, can we hear about that?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with that.
Yeah, well, Charlie's big thing was getting ready to hit, getting your load. And I think he's seen a clip from The Natural, and he called me in and he goes, hey, I think I got something I want you to try. So me, always willing to get better and to try something that might click. I remember the day we were in Scranton, and I went out and just holding the bat out, and what it did to my trigger, to my load of getting to my backside, but doing it, I guess, in a comfortable way, it got me into the right spot in my load. And as what I was doing before is getting already set and then moving forward without that negative load backwards to get ready. And the relaxed state that he put me in on the pre-setup got me ready to get to my backside, and it slowed me down. He also moved me on the plate and opened me up as to where before, when I signed, I was kind of on the plate and I guess square, but even more my direction as a left-handed hitter was more towards the shortstop. And I got a lot of hits, but my hips really didn't function to where he wanted them to. And by moving me on the plate with my back foot and slightly opening me up, that was the game. That was the total.
Yeah, that opened.
Because I could cover the ball away, but also get to the ball inside because my hips were already open to get there.
Well, and you got to have bat speed to be able to cover the whole plate. But to your point,
yes,
every hitter is different. And that's what I love the fact of it. I just love the fact that Charlie Manuel, who one of the best baseball minds, in my opinion, that it's just a simple thing. And he's not afraid to see, hey, I saw this. I think it could help you out. And my guess, Jim, is you felt it, right? Is how you describe, you felt it happen. And you went like shirts and pants here. I see what you're talking about. You made the connection. And then ultimately the rest was history, where you ended up doing some really good things. And that kind of
and the support that he gave us and showed us and was willing to work every day at making our guys there in Cleveland better. Like, we trusted that when he brought these little things up that he thought might help, we were willing to try. We were willing to let at least, entertain, hey, I'm going to try this because I think this can help. And that's a really good bond to have with someone, especially that you have in your corner. And I was fortunate for many years with him.
Yeah, I think the thing is, with all people that want to learn more about the game, and look, there's so many different ways to figure out what works for you for hitting, by the way. For anyone that's going to watch this and listen, there's not going to be one correct way that's going to work for you, but you want to be with someone as you continue to progress. Like Charlie in this example, the reason why Charlie was around for so long, he built trust with the players, but then also willing to be able to, hey, let's talk about this. Let's try to work on it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're on the same team trying to take you to the next level. And eventually, Jim, things did get taken to the next level for you. You're able to finally debut. What was it? September 4th, 1991. Was that just like yesterday, right?
Yep.
3.5 years ago. Sorry for bringing that bit, right? 33.
Hey, that's okay. It's reality.
Take me back to that moment. Take me back to.
Oh, I mean, it was in Minnesota. It was, it was a dream. I mean, every kid's dream is to play in the major leagues. And, going back about Charlie and about each individual, one of the things that he always talked about, Ryan, was knowing thyself. Yeah. Know thyself. What type of player Kenny Lofton was, what type of player Albert Bell, what type of player that Vizquel was, and utilizing your strengths of knowing thyself and your swing, and then utilizing that to become better and then work on some of your weaknesses. You know, if you had a hard time hitting the breaking ball, we would go hit breaking balls early. You know, Charlie would throw. I mean, they weren't curveballs like, say, Olsen back in the day. Remember the closer with Baltimore?
Yep.
You know, his big breaking ball, like it wasn't that, but just seeing that breaking ball, it helped our guys become better players. And the fact that we worked and worked and worked to just find this little rhythm or niche that was going to help our swings become better. And, you know, and then I'll go back to, you know, just getting to the major leagues. Then it all starts. Then now the adjustment phase of being a big leaguer, and now you have a little success, but also they're trying to then adjust to what, say, some of your weaknesses are, and you have to then adjust back. And then that was then the big journey of, how do I stay here? How do I stay in the big leagues for a long time?
Yeah, and that is the hard part. I think when people look at baseball as a whole, that's why for me, when people talk about getting there professionally, or they never got out of the minors, like, even, it's not because in my case I got to AAA, but when I hear other people go, oh, these guys kind of stink, I go, first off, let's take a step back here for a moment. If you make it to the big leagues, you are the 1% of the 1%. Jim, you do what you do. You are the 0.001% of all players for the success you've had in figuring it out. But every step that people made, whether you played in high school, to college, pro ball, to making it to the big leagues, to playing 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, going off and being one of the best, it's still an accomplishment in its own self. But for the big leagues, that is the hard thing. It's you finally feel like you made it, and then you got, well, damn, what do I have to do to prove that I should be here each and every day? I got to say, I think you figured that part out. You know what I was looking through? I know you had to work on at times learning how to platoon, right? That was kind of how you started off, was matchup based, if I'm not mistaken. Talk about that for me, because we're seeing that a lot more in baseball now, I think, or they're playing more matchups. How did you stay ready where, you know, hey, you know what? I'm only playing on these days, but how did you stay right on the days where you weren't going to be in the lineup?
I would say the work ethic that we created and the routine, even going back to the minor leagues, having Charlie as a manager in the minor leagues, Charlie was so heavily involved with our hitting that when we got to the major leagues, he then was our hitting coach there. So having him around and knowing the fact that we knew how to work, we knew what made us successful, and then we transitioned that. And then, you know, so being a left-handed hitter, I think it's, you know, like, think about it. You're facing guys like Randy Johnson. You're facing, you know, really some of the best lefties. And as a young player, now looking back, I get why sometimes you give a kid a break early on to mentally help him as well, you know. And then there is this transition eventually that every left-handed player, hitter, when you come to the major leagues, and I'm using a left-handed hitter because, let's face it, sometimes lefties sit on tough lefties, and I know I did, and I think it helped me to the point of, but once it was time to then go full time, you know, I think having those little breaks here and there early on helped.
Yeah. I think I just, because we see it a lot more. And I mean, for Baltimore, even, you know, I see a lot of people, like, they got a lot of young, talented players, you know, Jackson Holiday, Colton Cowser, Gunnar Henderson starting off. And, you know, Gunnar, seeing the adjustments even year by year in his young career, it's, reps over time, you get more comfortable. And also 3 talented players, talent does help in the situation, and you get used to it. Jim, is all that preparation though, did that help you hit 13 walk-offs? Do you realize how many walk-off home runs that you had?
Yeah. Like I think in the moment, I lost you there for a minute. Sorry.
You're good, Jim. What I was saying is, you just hit a bunch of walk-offs. At some point, did you realize that it was like almost like death taxes and Jim Thome is going to put one out here to win a game? 13, and I think, was that still the MLB record?
It is. It is. Yes. To my knowledge, it is. It's look, and I go back, being in, when you get in the 8th and 9th inning, wanting to be in a situation to help your team win. Now, is it always going to happen? No. But I go back at watching the way our guys worked, having the information, having a hitting guy that Charlie would communicate, hey, this guy, I think he's going to throw a fastball inside, or, hey, I think he's going to start you with a breaking ball, and constantly talking, hitting, and understanding that, that here was our hitting guy that was talking hitting and about each pitcher. So in your mind, you were already prepared, especially going to the on deck circle.
Yeah.
And then when you got in the box, having someone talk the game and almost being in there with you, I think that was big. At the end of the day, that support, our work that we put in, and then the communication of, hey, he's throwing a cutter, he's living with the cutter inside to the lefties. Make sure that you get that on the plate, and the game plan of in-game adjustments was always big during the game that we had to make. And I would say that was huge.
Yeah. Do you have then, I got to know, is there one that sticks out to you as far as being like, damn, that one was pretty cool. Do you have all of the walk-off moments? What do you got?
I have, well, the one in Minnesota off of the White Sox, that was big. That one, when I went to Minnesota, and then we were in a really tight race with the White Sox. I think it might have been in August, maybe towards September, but that walk-off against the White Sox, that really, that put us, the Twins, in a really good position, in our division at that moment. And, we had some great battles. Even when I was with the White Sox, we had great battles with Minnesota. And then when I was with Minnesota, we had great battles with the White Sox. So I got to live both sides of that and be a part of that. So that was really cool to just, to have that walk off in that moment.
Yeah, I'm always just curious of that, Jim. There's certain moments that might mean more to others, and also some people can go, well, I have one moment, and it's very easy. It's a highlight reel, Jim, of how many of these moments you had, and you're obviously so gracious enough to not go, oh, well, things turned out well for me, instead of being like, yeah, that happened there, and
no,
I got him on that day. But one thing, you mentioned a bunch of really talented players, and in the beginning you mentioned Kenny Lofton and Albert Bell and Danny, and those Cleveland teams, especially in the 90s. Goodness, man. I got to say also, those teams gave the team in Baltimore a few fits, if I say so myself. Specifically, they
had a good lineup too, Ryan. They really did. They had really good. I mean, it was we had some great battles with Baltimore, during in the playoffs,
Yeah.
even during the regular season. We knew offensively they were built. They were built to win. They had speed, they had power, and all good lineups. All good lineups if you look at them. If you've got your 6, 7, and 8 hitters that could hit anywhere in the middle of the order, I would say both of those teams had those types of players. And even in the game today, I think the really good offensive teams, some of your good teams, the 6, 7 hitters are easily guys that could hit in the middle and drive in runs.
Yeah, and you had guys that could had different roles. Like we talked about Kenny Lofton, guy that, he could have some pop, but get on base. You have Omar Vizquel, different role. But then you had some of the boppers. Jim, you were one of the boppers that ball could leave the yard in an instant, or ball gap can change the game. You had multiple players like that. I still remember just because, again, I guess I have some ties to this back in Baltimore. 97, the ALCS. Not that my dad's not bitter about this at all. The Orioles fans aren't bitter about this one. That was a wild series. I think there was the walk-off missed or bunt or no bunt on that one play, Jim, where the backstop could have been tipped. I don't know. I think some people in Baltimore think that there might have been a missed call there. Albert Bell had the go-ahead home run, I believe, off of Armando Benitez.
Yep. That was a grand slam, right?
Yeah. See, you remember that. You remember that one too well. Yep. That's what happened there. I mean, just talk about it.
And then the Tony Fernandez homer, that one. And then how can you forget the pitching performance of Mussina? And it was it Mussina and Nagy or Hershiser? Are
you talking about that final game where it was just no scored? I think it was Nagy. I got to check. I had it up here. But you know what? Just you talking about that, man, there was so many unbelievable moments. You faced going with that. Okay, since you brought up Mussina first, primetime Moose, how was that experience for that game? That could not have been fun in that type of situation. I tell people here that forget about Mike Mussina. Mike Mussina, there's a reason why he's a Hall of Famer. He was absolutely dynamite, especially even in that game. And I'll let you answer that. I'm pulling up that final game at the moment.
Yeah, Moose knew how to pitch. Moose was a guy that like he would pitch you different every time he faced you. And he may not, his go-to pitch was was the knuckle curveball, the curveball that was really good, the put away. But he might challenge you in the first 2 at bats and never use that pitch until he needed to use it. Or he would look at the situation and go, there's nobody on. I'm going to pitch to you in this moment. And then in crunch time, when guys might be on or a big situation, and he just knew and mastered the ability to not fall into a pattern that, let's face it, hitters are watching tendencies and they're watching the way a guy is attacking you. And I mean, he was tough. He was one of those guys that you knew you were going to have a day that if you got a pitch to hit, you better hit it, because you may not get a lot of them to hit.
Yeah. And for that record, for that game, Jim, it was Nagy that pitched. That is a fact.
It was Nagy, yes.
Nagy 7 1/3 for Cleveland, 9 hits, no earned runs, 4 strikeouts. And then Mike Mussina on the other side, 8 innings, 1 hit, 10 punch outs. to 2 walks.
Yes.
And then Armando Benitez gave up the homer late. Jose Mesa closed it out for you guys. And that was that. And also, I want to point this out because this is offense that we were talking about earlier that you're known for. There was a huge defensive play you made in the divisional series of that with the Yankees. Does that ring a bell by any chance?
Yeah. At first base. Yep.
So, and I know we're talking hidden wise, but Jim, that was an incredible play. Was that one of your best defensive plays that you can think back to?
In the moment, yeah, absolutely. I think as a player, right? Like we're all like, like the big hits, being in the big moment offensively, but when you can do it defensively and and do something big to help your team, especially in the playoffs. I call it that 7th, 8th, 9th inning on. When you can come up big, there's just something special about making a big play for your team and knowing you're going to go in that dugout and they're going to root you on. They're going to be pumped up and that you saved a run. Look, walk-off homers are great because you win games. Yeah. But to make a defense, especially what I went through early in my career, as we talked about the work it takes to become, an infielder, to stick in the dirt and stay in the dirt. Moments like that really mean a lot because that was a lot of hard work put and time. And maybe the baseball gods rewarded the player for that situation. That's what's really cool.
Yeah, the thing that I'm hearing for everything, the constant theme for you is it's work ethic. You need to have the, obviously, as you move up, the players that end up being the superstars in my mind, Jim, are the ones that are uberly talented, but they know what they're doing. Then you're going to have a mixture of guys that can maximize their ability because they are they're so good at knowing what they have to do. And then you have some guys that are so talented that, hey, the talent shines through, but man, you could be better, but you kind of hold yourself back for whatever the reasons may be. But those moments that you're talking about, the crunch time, for instance, I'm assuming then, because the way you talk about it, being like, hey, if I put the work in, I know a lot of guys that could put the work in, and then they get to crunch time and they are tense. They're nervous.
Yeah.
For you, is it just that you believe so much in your work that your heartbeat, you had ice in your veins? Because not everyone does that. Like Derek Jeter, I think fair to say Derek's one of those guys that's considered, all those years, moments he came through big. Unsung heroes, it felt like Delman Young in the playoffs, that it just seemed like the big moments it happened. How would you describe yourself, or how would you describe keeping yourself calm in big moments?
I would say how to stay calm is your breathing. And I think that was something you learn as you grow, as you age, as you keep getting reps. You learn on the on-deck circle how to control your breath, how to slow the game down. Think about it. You breathe quick, you have anxiety. You slow down, you breathe slower, you control your breathing, everything then stays calm. I call it the calm before the storm. And when we go back to what then Charlie did, in that moment in Scranton, and getting that good load and, hey, I want you to point the bat and relax before, you load back. I think that all, and then the belief of knowing thyself, the belief that I can do this. I may not do it every time, but if I'm in that moment, visualizing that moment of success, and then let's not forget, when you're in a lineup of great hitters, you reap the rewards of having great players around you, that sometimes that success happens.
Yeah. It's always easier when you have some good players around you, but also I like the reminder. Hey, know yourself. Don't try to do too much. Hey, and take a deep breath. Reset.
Yes.
Now, again, Jim, you make it seem easier because no one else has beaten your record for all the home runs that you hit for walk off. But it's a good note to have. Put the work in. Trust your work. Know thyself. And hey, just take a second to breathe. But a few things as we get close to wrapping up here. We'll start with this as we wind down on the hitting side. You said you worked a lot with my Uncle Bill, and you guys would make up whatever the hell you would make up for hitting drills there. But again, I think Uncle Bill is one of those best baseball minds. Can you tell me a couple of the drills that you guys would come up with for hitting? Because I'm really curious about how that all came about.
So I'll start it with this. As a player, you go through this career and you're a teammate, right? You have guys that you just, man, it clicks. It's like, man, I really like that guy. And then when I retired and I went to the network, I was very fortunate to be hired to go there and be a part of this great team of guys, smart guys that know pitching, know hitting. As with Bill, really knows all aspects of the game. So before I would come into New York or New Jersey, we would 2 days out, Bill would call me and say, hey, what do you want to do? We're working together Thursday. What do you think? And then we would think, and he might say, hey, I got this drill. What do you think? You're going to do the demo. I'm going to flip. And we had this great relationship of, yeah, I like this. So the one drill for me was the king of the mountain, getting on top of on the mound of the pitching mound, and the angle and the decline going down. First of all, you can't dive or you can't stride too quick or you'll fall over on the mound. What it did is it then got the angle. It got the angle of thinking, and I say this, thinking down, but the bat off of the back shoulder happens and it all comes level at that point. But it's the initial thought of, I'm going to go downward, but technically the bat then does level out. And as you pull your bottom hand directly to the ball, that all levels out. And let's face it, you face two-seamers, you face four-seamers. Sometimes a two-seamer, you might have to get a little under that ball. Or the high four-seamer that's up, if you don't get the middle of that ball or even a little on top, then that ball gets you and it beats you, as we all know as hitters. But what I loved about Bill, there was always a game plan. There was always fun. We were going to have fun doing this. And everything that Bill did there was a reason, there was a purpose, and for the good of the game, he always wanted to teach the young generation. And I think your father has done this. I think Bill has done this, and they learned it. They learned it from their father, that we're going to give back to the game in this way and do these drills that we think are going to help not only the young generation, but maybe a big leaguer to become locked in.
Yeah. And being locked in too. I mean, that's what you ultimately want to be. And that's a whole different definition in itself. King of the Mountain, though, is what you call that one. King of the Mountain.
So there was King of the Mountain. There was a drill where he would just, and he might have learned this from your father, where he would just lob the ball. He would lob the ball sitting on the bucket, and you had to control your front side movement to the ball and not come off of your backside, but control that negative move of getting back. And then how do I hold? Think about it. We're in the world today of hard machine. And I do believe this, Ryan. If you start from the backside, if you start slow and work forward, then you can face hard velo, and you can but if you go right into hard velo, you're off your wingman. You're off of your backside, and that's huge. And look, each and every one. I think knowing each player has to know their strengths and what makes them go. But boy, if you can keep that backside, when you load, if you can feel that backside, it's huge at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. The goal with every drill, like I said, there's no right hitter's manual to be a good hitter. You're trying to find the feel that's going to help you go out there and try to figure out yourself. But you're right. You got to go. The phrase for me was like, you always got to go back to go forward if you're going to give yourself a chance. And I just love the fact that you and Bill have gotten to work together. I'm sure that there was some other – Bill's got a lot of sayings and quirks, and they're one of a kind, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, he is one of a kind. Working with him has been so much fun. I mean, he is just, I love him. I love him. Everything he does is thought out. It's for the good of the game.
Yeah.
And he's represented the Ripken name so well. It's been great.
Yeah. He don't let everyone fool you. He can be loud and he can be a jokester, but genuine, authentic, and cares about the game, but ultimately cares about others and improving that specifically in the game of baseball, which I love. Jim, a couple fun things then, as we kind of wrap up with this, and maybe we'll take you a little bit down. Well, at least in the meantime, I think Brad's wanted to ask you something first off for a moment, because it's not a baseball related question, Brad, but It's more so of how people describe you, like your ability, so to speak.
Yeah, I just Ryan and I have talked about this, about you and specifically, for a while, because we know we wanted to have you on the show. And I was like, listen, I said, every time I see Jim Thome, he reminds me of Mr. Incredible. And I just wanted to know if anybody has told you that before, and if you get any from Disney. It's just unbelievable how uncanny that resemblance is.
Yeah, are you being casted anytime soon in the
live
action of this?
No, but I have definitely been told that, which it's it's kind of cool, right? Like, it's all good. At the end of the day, we look at the orange juice right there. I love orange juice. So what's that?
I said it had to have been then. Like they must
absolutely
have been. You are well, and also a lot of people want to describe you're one of the strongest, most feared hitters, Mr. Incredible, strongest man in the world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Makes too much sense.
Oh gosh, yeah, we had it's too perfect. It really is too perfect with it. I would love to know then on some quick hitters throughout your career.
Yeah.
Do you remember the longest home run that you hit? And I think it was still the record at Progressive.
It was in Cleveland. It was a day game. It was against Kansas City. Yes, I remember.
Who was the victim, Jim? Who was the victim? Who was
Wingert? I think Don Wingert, right-hander from the Royals. Little sinker out over the plate. I fouled a few balls off, and I felt during that at bat like, man, I might be getting locked in here. Like in an at bat where you kind of feel like something clicks. Yep. And I remember when I hit it, I didn't think it was going to go that far. And when it did, you know, obviously you're fired up. And then when you get in the dugout and the boys start having fun with you, it's great.
Yeah, especially, I know exactly what you're talking about, Brad, when he's saying you have that moment. First off, you're kind of ticked off of being like, how am I just missing this? Like, I'm right there. And then
Yes.
it's like this eureka, like, oh, it's right there. And then the ball is 500.
Yes.
It was 511 feet, Jim, I think is how far that ball traveled. That's
Mr. Incredible.
That's Mr. Incredible.
There you go. There
right
you
there.
go. You led right into it, right?
Yep, that was the whole plan of it. What was one of the toughest pitchers you had to face?
No doubt, Randy Johnson. No doubt about it. Lefty.
Okay. So lefty, you're 6'11", wingspan,
8 feet.
8 feet.
It's a no-brainer. I mean, you know, like that was back, you know, to your point of those days that I platooned or would sit against the lefty. That was the days, no doubt about it. And
what did that feel like? Like,
you know, look, I think. Say that again. Sorry.
What did that? Well, I mean, what does that feel like when you're watching? You're like, when you're watching this guy, and I know hitters, you want to keep doubts out of your mind, but when I'm looking at Randy, I go, how am I supposed to hit this? That's what I would think.
Yeah, I mean, he was just that good against left-handed hitters. And I would say this, like Lofton played against him, and Lofton bunted. Yeah. Lofton, when he got on base, he ran. So that dynamic of Kenny's game was always great, I think, to face a guy like that, because he could do so many different things.
Yeah. I was going to ask, do you remember how many times you bunted in your career? Did you bunt too many times?
I'm going to say, is it under 10?
I don't even have that stat, but I know it's not much at that point. Actually, I do have a funny
it's
stat.
Not.
Go ahead.
It's not a lot, but I have done it. Yes.
Okay. Well, how about this? This is something you have done, but not a lot of. How many stolen bases do you think you had in your career?
Ooh. How about 20 to 30?
Ooh, close. 19 stolen bases.
Okay. Yeah.
In 22 years. But you also had 612 home runs. So I think everything's okay there. You were caught stealing more than you stole bases. You got caught stealing 20 times. You stole 19.
Wow.
Bases. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't that I didn't know. So that would be If asked, I'll know that I was caught more than I stole.
And then, you know, kind of to wrap this up, I've noticed the picture behind you, you know, and that's from the Hall of Fame, right?
Yes.
The plaque right there.
Yes.
When we're looking back at this now in perspective, did you ever think that this was possible, or in that moment right there, was that the, you know, surreal moment that you could talk about, especially who you went in with, you know, the class that you went in with? For anyone out there that's trying to chase what they're trying to do, can you just explain that, how that full circle moment came to be?
I mean, I would never have dreamed of going into the Hall of Fame. And it's, you know, having the opportunity and being honored with that, you know, after your career is over, it's kind of surreal, to be honest. You know, going to Cooperstown and being around your dad, being around Eddie Murray, Ozzie Smith. I mean, the list goes on. George Brett. I mean, this great fraternity of players, and to think that you're a part of that when you were a Midwestern kid that just grew up in the middle of the country, loved playing baseball, got on his bike, went and found a brick wall, you know, drew a square and played tennis ball up against a brick wall, and didn't really think much about it. Yeah. And then went to high school, went to high school and just played, and went through the minor leagues and struggled, had success and struggled, and then just being around great teammates, as you always have to, appreciate what they did to help your journey. It's surreal. It's I would never have imagined ever being a Hall of Famer, and that's why I have so much respect for just the opportunity when I do go to Cooperstown to just really stop and think how cool, how great, and being around those group of men is. It's very, very special.
Yeah, it truly is. And I appreciate you saying that because, like I said, I think when people look at the journey of how you got there, you're going, man, they were so good, so talented, and it worked out. It's like, yeah, it did work out. They put a lot of effort and hard work and time and sacrifice to get to this point. They were able to create something that the few had the opportunity to do, but look at the backgrounds of where they came from. Ozzie Smith talked about quitting and being done. He wasn't starting in college. You're in a town and a place that people probably don't know much about, and you're just trying to play a game that you love, and a scout sees you one day and you get drafted, and here you are. You go down as being one of the best hitters and one of the best power hitters that the game ever saw. So, Jim, I appreciate you. But thanks for taking the time, and I cannot wait for when Disney hires you soon to be the live
Thank
action.
you.
You're incredible. So thank you.
You.
Appreciate your time.